Well, hello, and I'm so glad that you've taken the time to join us again for a word from the pastor. You will recall that we've spent several weeks looking at how we can fill our mouths with biblical arguments when we come to God in prayer, and that this is good and it is right, and God is pleased with it. And we concluded that series by pointing out that when we come before God this way, that we can come away with our mouths filled with praises because of God's answers to our prayer pleadings. And I want to begin another series starting today on how to become a master prayer warrior. Now, why am I using that kind of terminology? You recall that during the Renaissance period of the 15th and 16th century, some of the greatest painting masters in history emerged during that period. You will likely still today recognize some of them by name. Da Vinci, Michelangelo, Donatello, Botticelli. These were great painters from that period. And young painters during that time greatly desired to apprentice under these men. And the reason they wanted to do that is they knew that if they could study under these great masters, they themselves would likely become great painters. In fact, there are many records in the history of that period that wealthy men would often pay these great painters great fortunes to allow their sons to study under these master painters. So, in the same sense, if we want to master the incalculably valuable art of great prayer, it is incumbent upon us, it is absolutely necessary that we study the productions of great master prayer warriors. And there are very few in Scripture who ever rose to the level of the prayer excellence of David, a man who Scripture tells us was a man after God's own heart. David was so skilled in praise and prayer that his psalms have become the prayer language of godly saints for more than 3,000 years. The sweet psalmist of Israel was a master prayer warrior, and we who wish to master the sacred art of effectual prayer would do well to study the prayers of David. And to that end, over the next several weeks, I want to consider we're going to just take just a snapshot out of one of David's prayers, and we want to consider the instructive nature of this prayer and the way that David approached God in prayer. Remember, David was a master prayer warrior. The statement that we want to look at is in Psalm 70 and verse 5. Now, you would do well to go back and read the entire prayer there in the 70th Psalm, but we want to highlight this one particular verse and isolate some lessons from it. The Psalm says in verse 5, "But I am poor and needy. Make haste unto me, O God. Thou art my help and my deliverer, O Lord. Make no tarrying." In this short, powerful text, we discover four characteristics of a soul who would be a master in the art of prayer. First, we're going to see the soul confessing. David said, "I am poor and needy." Secondly, we're going to see the soul pleading. David cries out and says, "Make haste unto me, O God." Thirdly, we want to notice and give some consideration to the soul urgency of the psalmist in this prayer. He says, "Make haste, make no tarrying." And finally, we want to observe his soul grasping for God. He says, "Thou art my help and my deliverer." And in each one of these, we're going to see the posture of the soul that would effectually lay hold upon God and receive answers to prayer and become a great prayer warrior, a great prayer master. So the 4 points that we're going to look at over the next several weeks is, first of all, the soul confessing. Secondly, the soul pleading. Thirdly, the soul's urgency. And finally, the soul grasping for God. May God bless you as you consider these instructions on prayer, and may they enhance your prayer life. And my prayer for each of you is that you would become masters of this sacred privilege that we have to come before God's throne of grace in prayer and find help in time of need, and grace in time of need, and answers to our prayers in time of need. May God bless you. Thank you again for listening in. Have a wonderful week.